Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Happy Sunday, hope you're having a lovely weekend. This is what we're going to be making today. It's a lovely decoupaged robin bottle with a snow effect. Stick around and this is how we do it. First of all, I clean the bottle with the isopropyl and some lint-free cloths. These are the ones that you use on gel nails, so after you've cured it and you've got the sticky residue, you wipe them off with these. I had them left over. I used to do my own nails, but I don't anymore. And then I've primed it with this spray primer to give the paint something to adhere to. Left it to dry for about an hour. And then I used wall paint, so it's just normal wall paint. We had, when we were decorating our bedroom, we had some samples made up, and this is what's left over from them. This is just a white, which seems to work really well actually, so I might have to do that again, although I have got a little pot of chalk paint to try. And then I apply it with these sponge daubers all over the bottle. And then this time, so on my last videos, I've done one coat with this and then I've done the second coat with a paintbrush. However, with this bottle, I've done 2 coats with this dauber, and I definitely prefer it. Although you don't get so many paint streaks because you've already done like the primer and the one layer, I still found that I just wasn't happy with it. I much prefer this effect. So apply it all over, and I'm applying it right up to the top of the bottle, because I'm not putting a lid on this one. I make my own lid, which I'll show you later on, although part of the video actually gets missed out because my battery in my camera died and I didn't realise. But I'll explain that a bit later when we get there. So I done 2 coats. I left this overnight to dry the first coat and then added the second coat. I haven't filmed doing the second coat because obviously it's self-explanatory. And I do apologise, through this video it does actually kind of go blurry here and there, but it's quite tricky when you're working with a plain white surface. It doesn't tend to focus quite so well, so I do apologise. When I do notice, I sort of stick my hand in front, try and focus it again. And then these napkins, they're not a full pack. Somebody had obviously had a couple left over and I found them on eBay. And this is actually an order for a customer. She wanted some Christmas ones and she likes robins. In my last videos where I've made bottles, I've watched loads of videos before I started doing bottles because I'm very new at doing it. And they've all said that when you're cutting out a bottle, to use like the water effect with a paintbrush and kind of rip it. Now I done that on my last bottle and I actually prefer what I'm doing on this one, which is I'm actually leaving the back layer on so it's a bit thicker and I'm cutting it. And I found I could get a lot closer. I was more in control of how the edges looked rather than sort of torn edges. So I prefer this method and I think I'm going to do it going forward. But you know, it's each to their own. You find your own kind of method that you prefer to use. And I am a card maker as well, and the one thing that I've learnt when you're making cards is when you're cutting, fussy cutting, you move the project and not the scissors. Now I applied this method the same to this napkin, and as you'll see it works very well. So again, it's each to their own, but that's what I would advise if you're going to use the cutting method. Make sure you've got some very sharp scissors as well, which these ones are. So yeah, I fussy cut around the robin and then I'll peel the backing off which is another story in itself, because when I was peeling the backing off, I was 100% sure that there was only one layer. And after I had started to stick the napkin to the bottle, lo and behold, the second layer appeared. However, it doesn't seem to be a problem because I apply glue over the top of the napkin once I've glued under the napkin. And later on in the video you'll see how I've applied the faux snow around the bottle, which actually goes on the edge of the napkin, so it's really well sealed down, so I don't think it's ever going to be a problem. So just a word of warning going forward, please double check that there's not more than the one layer. But I really tried to see if there was another layer, and there wasn't. So there was only the one layer. There was two layers. Some have two, some have one. And then I've applied the napkin with Mod Podge, just the matte Mod Podge, which is the yellow labelled one. I don't apply too much glue underneath because you could end up having a mess, and the napkin will rip a lot easier because obviously it's more moist. I've applied it with this little brush so that I've got more control. I do have a bigger brush which I normally apply it with, but one, it was wet because I'd used it for something else, and secondly I wanted to be really in control with this one, so I used the smaller one. And then I've applied it sort of where I want to put the middle of the napkin, so you work from the middle outwards, try and get rid of most of the creases. And then I've just gone off screen there, which you don't notice at the time, but I'm applying the glue right to the very edge of the napkin because I don't want too much glue sort of coming out from underneath the napkin, because I wasn't really sure where I was going to be going around the bottle at this point. I thought I was going to add some clay with some patterns around the edges, but I changed my mind because that just didn't quite work with what I was doing, so I didn't end up doing that. But going forward, you know, you do need to be careful because you can actually see the glue. Although it's matte, it does leave like a very little bit of like a very slight shine because the paint's very matte. It's not a silk or anything like that, it's just a plain like matte emulsion. So I'm very wary because you can't always paint really close to the edge of the napkin, especially if you've cut it really close like I have here. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, I've glued a small amount of glue underneath the napkin, and here I am working in from the in out, getting rid of the creases, and just rubbing it, making sure I'm rubbing fairly well, obviously very gently, all over the napkin, right up to the edges, and then just pull back the napkin where it's not glued, and then obviously apply the glue from there, again going outwards, and then I'll apply a little bit to the edge of the napkin again as well, just to make sure I get the edges, because I don't want the glue to sort of go too far out of the where the napkin's going to be. And I just work my way around the napkin doing this method, making sure it's really well sealed, working from sort of the middle outwards, gently but firmly, because obviously the napkin can tear very easily. Also in my other video I've actually done this because I've watched lots of videos and they recommend to put some cling film over it, which I believe you call is cling wrap in America. Now I didn't find that that worked very well for me. I found doing this one, doing it this way for me personally works better, but again you'll find your own method of doing it, what works for you, what doesn't. Obviously the only problem with doing this is you do get gluey fingers, so you have to make sure that I just kind of rub my fingers and the glue sort of comes off, because obviously you don't want your fingers to be too sticky with the glue, otherwise you're going to end up pulling the napkin off and breaking it. So you do have to make sure you keep your fingers clean. You could probably use gloves to do it, but when you're wearing gloves you can't really feel so well as you can obviously when it's your own skin. So I found this works well as long as I'm sort of, you know, rubbing the glue off between when I can feel it on my fingers, so that I don't rip the napkin. And then just working my way round with the glue and working outwards, making sure it's all glued down right to the edges like I said. And then I'll go over the top with the glue again, just to make sure it's all well sealed. And again I'll apply the glue, and if it seems a bit too thick in certain places, then I'll kind of smooth the glue across the surface with my finger. And then here I am just kind of working my way around, applying the glue to the edges first, and then I apply it to the rest of the bottle. Again, making sure, especially here because your finger's directly onto the glue, making sure to rub your fingers together to get the glue off, because again, you know, you could easily rip. Because I'm still doing this, I haven't allowed it to dry between, because obviously I don't want it to dry between, because the layer over the top needs to seep through to, you know, give it more adhesion to the bottle. Whether you need to do it over the top I don't know, but I wanted to, and I always will, just to make sure it's fully stuck. And I wanted to definitely do it on this one because obviously I then found that there was the second layer underneath the top layer, when I only thought there was the one. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to come off. So I do the edges first and then I'll go over the rest of the bottle. Sped it up here for you so that you're not literally watching paint dry, because I mean you all know roughly how to do it. Obviously you've still got to be really, really gentle. So you can see there I'm sort of spreading it out and then making sure it's really well spread and it's not too thick with my fingers. And I do this all over the bottle. Sorry, not all over the bottle, all over where the napkin is. Especially make sure you really well adhere the edges. I definitely don't want no peeling. The glue is actually a sealer as well, so I personally would advise to do it over the top of any napkin, because it will help to seal it. I don't know if it will seal it from the elements if you was to put it outside. I wouldn't personally put it outside, unless you had a specific sealer that was safe for outdoor use. I don't intend to put, well, my customer doesn't intend to put it outside, so that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem there for them. For me it's more about just making sure it's well adhered. I'd love to know in what your sort of favourite methods are, what you found works for you when you're doing this sort of thing. And if my videos have inspired you to give anything a go, I'd love to hear from you, see what you're trying, what you're up to. And then I felt it was a little bit flat, so I thought, what can I do? So I had a ponder while the glue dried, and I got these ice stickles, which are, I believe, Tim Holtz. And I've applied them to all of the berries, but not on the red part. So there's like a snowy type effect on top of the berries. So I've applied it onto the berries, but on the snow part. And then some of the leaves and some other bits that, you know, have got the snow effect on them, I've applied the stickles, just to give it a bit of, you know, glimmer. Again, at this point I didn't really know where I was going with the rest of the bottle, so I felt it was a little bit flat, Christmas sparkle, you know, all that sort of thing. So I thought, right, let's give it some sparkle. So I decided that's what was going to happen. Again, I was still under the mindset that I was going to be applying some form of nice decorative air dry clay around the bottle to give it some, you know, nice finish. I still didn't know that I was going to be doing, you know, what I do towards the end. I don't know why it's frozen there. I really apologise. What's going on? So yeah, I thought, right, okay, Christmas sparkle, let's do it. So that's what happened. I was a little bit concerned because I wasn't sure. Obviously the napkin had dried overnight by this point. Actually no, it didn't. I'm lying. I'm really sorry. I'd done this immediately after I'd put the top layer of the glue on. I thought I'd do it whilst it's still damp, because I thought if I do it when it's dry, because the stickles is moisture, is it going to re-crease? Is it going to, you know, re-moisten the napkin? Am I going to run into problems? So I was like, right, I'm going to do it whilst it's still damp from the glue. Firstly, because I thought, well, the glue that I've put over the top can help to adhere the stickles, and obviously secondly I also thought moisture, is it going to cause me problems once the napkin's dry? So I was like, right, I'm going to do it at the same time. So that's what I'd done. I left it overnight to fully dry and cure before I'd done anything else on the bottle, because I didn't want to risk smudging it at this point, because I was happy where we were going. And I needed some time to think, right, okay, where am I going to go? I was looking through the moulds that I've got, because I'm still quite new at doing the bottles. I haven't got loads of moulds. And I wanted something that was going to fit with the bird. You know, I didn't want it to be something completely different and, you know, way out there that didn't have anything to do with the bird. I wanted it to be still sort of in the remit of Christmassy. I didn't have anything. So my best thoughts are when I'm trying to go to sleep and I had a light bulb moment, and I thought, oh, faux snow. I could faux snow the bottle. My intention was to actually do the faux snow at the bottom of the bottle, and I was like, do you know what, I'm going to do the whole bottle because I really like it. So I started doing the bottom of the bottle, and I was like, no, I really like this. It's going to answer all of my questions. It's going to cause me no problems. So I'm going to do it all over the bottle. And I love it. So I've added faux snow, a glitter glue, and I add some glitter to give it some extra shine, because at Christmas time you can never have enough. So I've just got like a little lid here from a pot that I store some gems and things in, and I've got like, it's an old makeup brush actually, and it's like a short bristled brush, and it's It's firm but not too firm. I have no idea what part of makeup it's supposed to apply, but I don't use it, so I put all my old makeup brushes that I don't use into my craft space, and I use them for crafting because they're a brush at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm just making up more, you know, getting it. The consistency you want is that you want it to be quite wet with the glue, because obviously you want to know that it's going to stick well, and not peel off or, you know, easily rub off. So I'm trying to make a fair chunk here without making too much at a time, because I didn't want it to dry at the same time. So it's the kind of consistency that I want, and then, which is, you know, quite moist but not really moist. And then I get it on the bottom of the brush, and then I just kind of, what's the word, just kind of dab it, you know, so it's kind of, because you don't want it to be too flat, because snow's not flat. So, you know, I just load my brush up and just kind of dabble it on. And I kind of do it quite thin, and I thought, well, actually snow settles, so I do it a little bit thicker as we go along on the bottom of the bottle, and then as we go up the bottle I don't do it quite as thick, although I do some bits a little bit thicker, some bits a little bit thinner. You can just gauge, you know, what you see fit as you go through, as to, you know, how thick you want it where. And obviously don't go really close to the bottom of the bottle, because obviously, you know, you don't want it to be chipped off or anything when the bottle's on a surface. And as you can see, I can get right up close to the edge of the napkin, so you can't even see where the edge of the napkin is. Not that you can normally, but I could slightly see the edges on this one because it was a double layer, because I got it wrong. I could only get one layer off, and I was 100% sure there was only the one layer. So you can slightly see the napkin on this one, because it is very slightly thicker than what the single layer napkin goes on. It, you know, when it's a single layer, it looks like it's part of the bottle, which is the whole point of it. So I had to make sure that with this effect I had to get as close as I could to the napkin, and it worked out really well. If there was any parts that, you know, were really quite small, I've got like a pokey tool, which is like a thin, for anyone who doesn't card make, it's like a thin, like poker basically, and we use it to release dies and things like that. So I loaded that up a little bit, or I would push, you know, put it on the bottle and then sort of push the bit on the bottle and push it into the little gap and just kind of do it that way. But this brush worked really quite well, getting in right into the edges there and into the little tight spots. The napkin and the stickles had been left overnight to dry before I done this. When I finished doing the whole bottle with this, I also leave that overnight, and the thicker bit on the bottom was actually very slightly damp, so I did have to still be careful. But the next day I could see little bits that kind of needed a bit of an infill, so I added a little bit more here and there, not loads, just a little bit more. Plus, after I'd made the lid and added it to the lid, I felt that, sorry, not felt, my brain's not with me today again, as usual. I had a little bit left over from the lid, and I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want to put it down the drain or, you know, waste it. Our money's precious when we're buying craft tools, craft products. So I basically just added a bit more snow in the sparse bits. And you know, you don't always see them when it's wet. So I had a good look over it in the morning and I could see little bits, which I did want to leave little bits kind of, you know, where, you know, snow, you know, to give it that real nice effect. I did want it to have kind of shallower bits, or I don't know how you'd explain it, but where it's not quite so thick. But I didn't feel that they looked right, so I added some more. And then this is the lid that I made, which basically I got some air dry clay, rolled it round in my hand and just flattened it with the palm, with, you know, the inner palm of my hand, flattened it lightly to the top of the bottle, and just kind of pressed slightly around it to give it that roundness, which I didn't film because the camera battery had died, which I didn't realise, so I do apologise. And then where I lightly pushed it with the palm of my hand, it's kind of taken on the kind of rim of the bottle, which you can see here in a minute when I come in shot, which I really apologise. And then I've used, this is tacky glue, which I found works really well with the air dry clay, and I've added it around the rim, which gives it some extra security. However, where I add the faux snow from the bottle to the lid, it kind of secures it even more, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to come away. And when I'm mixing the faux snow to go on the lid, because it's going on air dry clay, I didn't want to just use glitter glue, so I am using it again. I'm using the tacky glue, so I put a good amount of the tacky glue, as well as the glitter glue, and again I add some more glitter, mix it really well again, and then to the, you know, the watery sort of consistency, but not too sort of watery. You want it to be fairly wet so that obviously it's workable and it's got plenty of glue so that it sticks well, because it's going on the clay. I wanted to make sure that it was going to stick really well. So then just give it a really good mix up and just keep adding the glue until, you know, it's at that consistency. I actually made this a little bit wetter than what I done the bottle with. I don't know whether it's because I added the tacky glue as well, I don't know, but I was a little bit concerned that it was actually going to run down the bottle. I think it made it slightly too watery, but it stuck really well and it's still intact today, so that's good. And I finished this yesterday, so I finished it Saturday, sort of midday, I suppose. And then the same way that I put it on the rest of the bottle, I'm just kind of dabbing it, but I'm bringing it down slightly over the last bit that I've put around the rim of the bottle, so that it looks continuous. It doesn't look like I've done one part and then done the next part, because again I wasn't actually going to put a lid on it. I was going to do some berries and some other bits, but it just didn't work, didn't look right, so I was like breaking my brains again to think, okay, I don't like the hole at the top, I can't put a bottle on now, a lid on now, because, you know, I've put the snow right up to the top. What can I do? I was like, air dry clay, I'll make my own lid. So that's what I done, and then here I am just using up the rest of it, filling in the little sparse bits here and there, just lightly filling it over. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. I hope it's inspired some of you. Please do give me a like and a subscribe to help me to grow my channel, to help me to reach more people, to hopefully inspire more people, and bring them along on the journey with me. I do appreciate your time. This is the finished bottle. Hopefully my customer will love it. Take care, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.